It was a foggy autumn evening when the carnival rolled into town. Dark clouds hung heavy in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the small village that had been quiet for years. Brightly painted wagons, faded with age, lined the main street. Strung lights swayed in the cold wind, flickering and sputtering. The scent of old leather and decaying wood filled the air, mingled with a faint aroma of popcorn and candy, sweet enough to draw in curious townsfolk. This carnival was unlike any they had seen before. Whispers spread quickly through the town. No one had seen the carnies arrive, but by dawn, the entire carnival had taken shape on the edge of the forest, nestled in a clearing that was usually silent and empty. As evening fell, the townspeople wandered toward the carnival grounds. In the center stood an elaborate puppet show, with a darkened stage draped in crimson velvet. The puppets were exquisitely detailed, each with hauntingly lifelike expressions that seemed to shift in the flickering light. As people gathered, a voice boomed from nowhere, a chilling, smooth tone that introduced the Puppeteer's carnival, promising wonders beyond imagination. The carnival's star attraction was the puppet master, a young man with a haunting presence. His face was unnaturally pale, framed by piercing, glowing green eyes and a wide, unsettling grin. His puppets performed on stage, dancing, laughing, and singing in unnatural voices. The townspeople marveled. Children clapped with glee as the puppets acted out strange tales of tragedy and love, war and betrayal. Among the visitors was Iris, a young woman burdened by a recent loss. The joy of the carnival felt like a cruel mockery to her grief, but she found herself unable to look away. The puppets seemed alive, their eyes following her wherever she went. One puppet in particular, a sad-eyed jester dressed in tattered colors, held her gaze. She felt a chilling sense that the jester was trying to communicate, reaching out in silent desperation. As the performance ended, Iris stayed behind, drawn to the stage. The crowds dispersed, but the puppeteer remained, seeming to expect her. He beckoned her closer, his face shining under the dim lanterns, and offered her a seat at the front. He introduced her to each puppet by name, recounting their tales as if they were alive, not mere wood and cloth. Each story resonated with Iris, reminding her of her own lost dreams. When the night deepened, the puppeteer finally left, leaving Iris alone in the theater tent. She heard soft whispers, voices barely above a murmur, and shadows shifted out of the corners of her eyes. Her heart pounded as she watched the puppets stir, their heads turning as though alive. One by one, they climbed down from the stage, their joints creaking and groaning. Iris gasped, stepping back, but the sad-eyed jester motioned for her to stay. "Help us," he whispered in a voice as hollow as an empty wind. Fighting her fear, Iris whispered back, asking who they were and why they were trapped. The jester's gaze darkened as he recounted their story. Each puppet was once a person, someone who had stumbled upon the carnival and had been ensnared by the puppeteer's dark magic. He had taken their souls and trapped them in wooden bodies, their memories fading, left to perform under his twisted control for eternity. The jester explained that the puppeteer's power lay within a hidden talisman, a cursed heart-shaped locket he kept hidden somewhere within the carnival. If she could find and destroy it, the puppeteer would lose his grip over them, and they would be free. Iris's determination hardened. She promised to return and help them escape. But as she crept away from the stage, a cold voice stopped her. "Leaving so soon?" The puppeteer emerged from the shadows, his pale face twisted into a wide, unsettling grin. His piercing, glowing green eyes fixed upon her with a predatory gleam. Iris tried to feign ignorance, pretending she was simply lost, but he saw through her ruse. He offered her a challenge, If she could find the locket before dawn, she could break the curse. But if she failed, her soul would join the others in his collection. With no other choice, Iris accepted. The puppeteer vanished into the shadows, leaving her alone among the twisted, dimly lit stalls and tents. Every corner of the carnival seemed alive, shadows shifting and laughter echoing from nowhere. She searched frantically, pushing through eerie halls lined with mirrors that reflected not her own face but that of the puppets. The games, too, were rigged against her. Figures made of cloth and metal twisted and turned, blocking her path, whispering taunts and warnings. It was as though the entire carnival conspired to keep her trapped, mocking her efforts to free those within. Just as the sky began to lighten with the approach of dawn, Iris stumbled upon the fortune-teller's tent. A crystal ball sat on the table, shrouded in mist, and behind it hung a dusty shelf filled with trinkets, oddities, and charms. There, hanging on an old mannequin, was the locket, its surface as dark as midnight, carved with runes of binding and betrayal. The moment her fingers touched the locket, a scream filled the air. The ground shook, and the carnival lights flickered as though the entire place was shuddering. The puppeteer appeared, furious, his pale face twisting into an expression of rage, revealing his piercing eyes and unsettling grin. He reached for her, shadows twisting like claws, trying to reclaim his talisman. In that moment of desperation, Iris gathered her courage. With a final cry, she threw the locket to the ground, crushing it underfoot. It shattered into pieces, releasing a blinding light that engulfed the clearing. But instead of freeing the souls, she felt the darkness begin to envelop her, as if the amulet was not just a source of power for the puppeteer, but also sought a new host. Iris's body felt heavy and stiff. Her limbs no longer obeyed her commands. She tried to scream, but her voice was swallowed by the silence. As she looked around, the puppets that had once stood on stage smiled eerily. In that instant, she understood. This curse had no remedy. It simply changed the sacrifice to a new victim. Finally, as the sunlight began to shine, the carnival did not disappear. The new puppeteer, in the form of Iris, stepped up to take on the role, alongside the sorrowful puppets that served as a reminder of her own spirit trapped for eternity. Thus, the carnival and the curse continued, weaving a never-ending tale of despair, just like the fate of those who fell into this dark abyss with no escape.